All right, so now we're going to look at going into guillotine from closed guard. All right, so most of the guillotines that we're going to be looking at from closed guard are going to be off of failed attempts at other moves, okay? Because of the fact that when you go with anyone at a high level, obviously for guillotines, my head has to be higher than my partner's in order for me to make the guillotine work or even lock the guillotine, okay? In closed guard, obviously, the staple of this position is that my partner's head is higher than mine, all right? So I'm not going to say that it's impossible to just use a collar tie to push your partner's head in like so, and then we can sit up and, pull ourselves into guillotines. But against anyone that's relatively good, that's going to be incredibly hard to do, okay? The second I take a grip on my partner's collar, she's immediately grabbing my wrist. She's stripping the grip. The second I'm going to start taking my partner's head off center, she's immediately looking to bring it back to center and just bring it back in. She's looking to stand up. She's looking to do all kinds of things, which is going to make the guillotine very hard from here, all right? And then, of course, even if I do manage to get my partner's head off center and I manage to sit up, if my partner just shrugs her shoulders and shoots into a body lock, it's going to be hard for me to go in and lock the guillotine. Even if I get my partner's head trapped a little better than this, I end up here. If she locks a body lock from here and pulls me in, I can't even begin to get my hand across to this side to go into lock a tight guillotine. If I lock an arm in from here, it's hard for me to even pull my hands up because my partner is locked in with the body lock. And so now we kind of just get stalemated a lot of times from here. And I'm not going to say you can't do that, but it's so difficult on someone who is good. So what we're going to have to do is to use deception, use distractions to get my partner off balance so that she's thinking about not getting swept or not getting submitted, and then we can go into locking guillotines and figuring out how we're going to transition from there. All right, so now let's look at basic hip bump sweep from guard and going to locking guillotines. So obviously when we look to go up into this hip bump from closed guard, I don't want to look to just sit up from here and then have my partner just immediately body lock me and give me trouble. So when I go to start sitting up for any hip bump sweep, I want to look to control my partner's wrist. Because at any point she goes to come forward towards me, it's hard for her to do so, okay? So the first thing we're going to look to do from here is we're hand fighting, and my partner has maybe hands on me, maybe hands on the floor, whatever the case is. We just take a hand off to the floor, as we spoke about, in the closed guard instructional and other instructionals, and we just get control of our partner's wrist. Now, right from here, I'm going to look to start pulling my partner's head across and just sitting up into this position. So that now, right from here, as I look to start sitting up, and my partner tries to go in and lock a body lock, it's going to be difficult. Now, right away, I want to get my hips higher than hers. If I can get my hips higher than my partner's, I can take her over. And now, right from here, we're just going to threaten coming up into a situation where I can take my partner over, okay? As I look to start coming up and look to start taking my partner over, we're just going to look to build height on our partner and see her reaction. If I get no pushback reaction, then we just come through, we take our partner right up and over. Most people from here will start to drive back into you and look to start bringing their head high to get the head high. When I go to fit my hand in from this position, the key thing to locking this and almost every guillotine is the idea of having concave shoulders. Okay, it goes back to the same idea of concave shoulders that we always talk about in almost every instructional. So you see here, my hand is physically limited by the mass of my body if I can't bring my hand on through. But when I concave my shoulders, now we can bring our hand on through, and now we can start locking it up. Now, obviously this is situational, but the further I get my hand through, the more options I have for guillotines, okay? But the main setup is right here. Whether I fall and we go arm in, whether I fall and I go low elbow, high elbow, however we're looking to go in and finish guillotines here, this is the main setup, and we'll look at the finishing mechanics for each of the guillotines as we move forward here, okay? But the main idea is that we're using the failed hip bump sweep, we're getting the distraction, and the basic dilemma of if she doesn't come forward towards me, she gets taken over. If she does and the head rises, we concave shoulder, and we go into guillotines from here, okay? So we're playing in, we go collar tie, we go wrist. Right from here, we pull the head up and over, we open our legs, and now we look to start coming into situations like so. Now, right from here, as we look to start building height on our partner, we come up, we look to start taking her over from this bottom guard position. If she does nothing, we just take our partner over like so. If we see my partner starts to start driving back into me, we're going to drape our hand up and over. Now, the main thing here is my concave shoulders. We move into this position. Only now can my hands come through, and now we can start locking up guillotines. And you see here, you can even see my hand starting to emerge on the opposite side because of the fact that I changed the angle and my shoulder's concave. The more you concave your shoulders, the better chance you're going to have from here. So right from here, we start with a bridge with convex shoulders, and immediately as I feel her push back, we concave. Now we're ready to go in and start finishing our various forms of guillotine. All right, so now let's look at the finishing mechanics of the low elbow guillotine. Almost every low elbow guillotine I'm going to use, my preferred, is the 5-finger grip like so, okay? If you look at every guillotine expert, you look at Marcelo, if you look at Kron, if you look at Gary, anyone who's ever been good at guillotines, the one thing they all have in common is that their chin and their hands are as close as humanly possible. Obviously, you're looking to do this. If you can get your chin to your hands, it's perfect. Now, you can't do that, obviously, because your partner's body is between your chin and your hands. But what you're looking to do is you're looking to connect your chin and your hands the best you can. The higher your hands are and the smallest amount of distance between your chin and your hands, the tighter the lock will be. That is so, so important, okay? The tightness of the lock is largely based around your ability to get your hands and your chin as close as possible together. So when I'm finishing a low elbow guillotine and I feed everything in, what I want to look to do is I lock up the guillotine like so, and this is going to be my position here, okay? I have a 10-finger grip. I don't have my elbow so deep where my hands come up like over my partner's shoulder. We just lock everything into this position here, all right? Once I get into this position here, and I have closed guard, what I'm looking to do from here is take my chin down to my partner's traps and rear delts and pull my hands up as high as I can towards my sternum and towards my own chin. Here, this is the position I want to be in. Now, right from here, the further I can angle out to my right, or my left hip rather, the easier it will be for me to start crunching my partner's chin into her chest. So maybe I fall to my left hip and I'm in perfect position. Maybe I have to readjust by just shimmying off my partner's hip with my knee, by closing my right knee over my partner's hip and shimmying off and locking up my legs in closed guard. Now, while I want to take my partner's chin to her chest, I also want to take her chest up to her chin. So while I take my partner's chin to her chest by taking my left elbow and crunching it down towards my hip, I'm going to look to pull my two knees into my chest and pull her chest in up towards her chin. So from this position, I pull my, first thing is setting my hands. All right, so the first thing I want to do, I lock the guillotine, I set my hands, and I bring my hands up as high as possible. Here. 2 is I bring my chin down to my partner's back and get it as close to my hands as possible. 3 is I take my left elbow down to my left hip and I start crunching my partner's chin to her chest. 4 is I pull my knees into my chest. That pulls my partner's body closer to me. And then we combine all this together and we get strong finishes with strangulations with low elbow guillotines. Okay? So right from here, we lock in this guillotine and we fall down. As we're falling, we should already be trying to set the hands as high as possible. On the adjustment and through movement is going to be what makes these adjustments the easiest. Okay? So as I'm falling down, we want to fall into this position here. Okay? Now, if I fall flat, you see it's hard for me to crunch my partner's chin to her chest. So right away, I want to always look to shimmy and shrimp out a little bit so we can lock up like so. But 1, I set the hands high. 2, I set the chin low. 3, I crunch my partner's chin to her chest. 4, I pull her chest up to her chin through my knee pull. And that's what gives me extremely strong finishes with the strangle. You see, not even really doing anything. Where she got up and her eyes were bloodshot, her face was red. It comes on very, very tight, okay? So setting the hands, getting the hands up high, getting the chin down low, crunching her chin to her chest, and pulling her chest into her chin with a knee pull is going to be your best bet for finishing not only this guillotine, but many of the guillotines. right, so now we're going to look at finishing the high elbow guillotine. Once we get through the mechanics, Sonny's going to be a lot happier because then we won't have to finish them for the rest of the instructional over and over again. But we're going to go through the finishing mechanics. And these finishing mechanics are going to remain the same through the instructional, obviously. There's just going to be slight different variations with the leg positioning, which we'll talk about when we get there. But finishing the high elbow, all of the mechanics are the same, except for the fact that I'm going to look to get my elbow and my wrist and my elbows in a little bit different position. So this time, when I fall, we'll fall into this position here. Now, a lot of times when you're looking to set the guillotine, you can set it where your wrist is up high by your partner's shoulder here, and then you can either go into high wrist or high elbow guillotines, okay? Many times, though, you won't be able to set it right from the beginning, okay? And in closed guard, it's hard to set it right from the beginning. If I'm punching it in, I can move around from a front headlock, for example. A lot of times, right from this position, we can go in and we can just feed our hand all the way through, and then we can just transition into a high elbow. From a closed guard, off of the sailed hip bump, a lot of times from this position, it's hard for me to set my hand, because as I'm falling, I can't move my body all the way from one side to the other to really get my hand up high, all right? So instead of doing it through moving my body position, I'm going to physically adjust it by switching the grip and using my hands to make the adjustment as I fall down, okay? So when I can move my body, like some front headlock, for example, I can make this center line shift where my head moves from one side of the center line to the other and punch my hand through. I don't have the real ability to do that. This is all happening quickly. When I move here, I don't have the ability really to move my hand all the way from one side to the other as I fall. I kind of get stuck in the middle somewhere here. So a lot of times when I fall, I just grab that 10-finger grip, and the first thing I want to look to do is I want to look to punch and pull my left hand further through. So I don't just pull my hand up here. What I first do is I use my right hand to pull across the shoulder line, and I think about taking my left elbow and shooting it to my partner's center line. So I use an assisted pull with the right hand, and I use a punch of the left elbow with the idea that the left elbow should get to my partner's center line the best I can. So when I go to initially adjust it, I shoot into this position here. Now I fire my elbow up and over my partner's shoulder like so. Now from this position, all the mechanics remain the same. I want to look to crunch my partner's chin. My hands are set properly, my chin's down, I crunch my partner's chin to the chest, and I pull everything in with the knees, and we can get strong finishes for the high elbow, okay? So the setup and the adjustment is a little bit different from here. So right from here, I fail this hip bump, I fall at the place, I transition into a high elbow guillotine like so, or into a low elbow guillotine like so. Now right from here, we're just gonna take our right hand, we're gonna pull everything through, we're going to take our left elbow and we're going to shoot it across our partner's body so the left elbow gets to the center line. So right from here, I want to make the adjustment like this so that now the elbow can come high. And now right from here, all the mechanics remain the same. Hands are set properly, chin is set properly, chin to chest, knees to chest. I'm pulling her chest up to her chin. And then from here, we can go in and start finishing our partner, okay? It's similar, very similar to heel hooks, as you're not just crunching the toes to the butt, you're also pulling the butt to the toes with the ashigarami. So same idea here. The chin's going down to the chest as the chest is rising up to the chin, okay? And then of course, if at any point I attempt this high elbow and my partner has a good reaction from here of reaching up and over my shoulder, like so, what I always want first is to make sure my elbow is as close to my partner's center line as possible. If it's out here and I have a high elbow and she reaches over, the reach is so easy. So what I want is to jack it up high towards my partner's center line and move into this position. If I can from closed guard, even connect my knee and my elbow, this will make it almost impossible for my partner to reach up and get over the elbow from here, okay? If my knee and elbow aren't connected, it's not impossible, but it'll be a lot harder for my partner to reach because my elbow position. All right, so I want my elbow, both of my elbows as close as possible to my partner's center line. So the first thing is, I punch my left elbow through. My right elbow comes high. When she goes to reach over, it's not impossible, but it's hard. If I connect my knee and my elbow, now it's impossible. And now when she goes to reach over, it's just not going to happen. If at any point she does reach over, that's fine. We just convert it to a low elbow. We tuck our elbow in tight like so she can't access my grip and strip the grip. And now we finish it with the same mechanics as we did from the low elbow. Okay, so moving into extremely tight high elbow finishes from closed guard. And because you have control of both of your partner's hips with the closed guard, whenever you can lock your legs around your partner's hips, these are going to be the tightest guillotines that you can possibly finish. All right, so now we're going to look at finishing the high-risk guillotine. Okay, so the whole idea of the high-risk guillotine from here is the high-risk guillotine is something that I started using in 2014 or 15. And it was because I started to do high elbow guillotines because they're very powerful with strangling. But I started to do high elbow guillotines, and I find that people would just reach over my elbow, pull my elbow down, and make me convert to low elbow guillotines. And I had a lot lower percentage finish from the low elbow guillotine position. Okay, so what I started doing, I started playing around with guillotines in general, and I said, with arm-in guillotines, I have a lot of control over my partner because I have the head and the arm trapped, but it's much harder to finish the arm-in guillotines. Okay, so I said, what if I can combine the strangling power of a high elbow guillotine with the control mechanisms of an arm-in guillotine and control my partner's head and arm, but have the strangling power of the high elbow. So what I started doing was I started feeding my hand on through, like I was going to go for a high elbow, but I started overwrapping my partner's elbow in this position. Now, it's best if you can grab your own elbow. I have pretty long arms for my size, and she's obviously a lot smaller than me, so I'm always going to be able to grab my own elbow. But if you're fighting someone much bigger than you, you have shorter arms, whatever the case is, if you feel like you can't do that, then I can just go in, and I just take a false grip, like so, over my partner's arm, and I just touch my own chest with my hand in here. And now the goal here is to wedge my hand between my partner's shoulder and my partner's neck. So whether it be here or whether it be here, it makes no difference. I want to pull my elbow back to my own hip. So when she tries to pull her elbow back and tries to access my hand, she can't do it. Whether it's here, whether it's here. So now when she goes to pull that elbow back, she can't. Now I have the same strangling pressure as a high elbow, but I have the same control mechanisms as an arm in. And so this is the best of both worlds here. This is by far the best guillotine you can choose to use. Okay? So now, how do I finish this from this position? Right from here, we're going to go in, we're going to threaten a hip bump on our partner, and we're going to feed our hand on through. Now we fall down into a closed guard position. Now, right from here, again, we're going to look to shift out to the side. We're going to pull our hand through, and instead of going into a high elbow position, what we're going to look to start doing is instead of pulling our hand through and taking it up and over, we're going to pull our wrist through, and we're just going to cover our partner's arm like so. You should be able to see your fingertips emerging from the top of your partner's shoulder through this little window here. And now right from here, we're just going to reach up and over, grab our own elbow, or just go in and grab our partner's arm, pull it in towards us. Now we're going to look to go in and start with the same finishing mechanics. I can't even lock it up completely here because it's so tight. But we're going to go in with the same finishing mechanics of crunching the chin to the chest, pulling the chest, knees into the chest. That pulls my partner's chest up and getting strong finishes. So we make the same initial adjustment right from here. Show you on this side. We make the same initial adjustment from the low elbow, and we pull everything up into the high elbow position. But instead of finishing the high elbow from here, we just go in and we reach over our partner's arm and we pull her elbow to our hip. And now right from this position, we lock up. And now when she goes to pull the elbow back, because I have a closed guard, not only is it reinforced and makes it hard because my elbow position, but I can also wedge my elbow inside my own thigh. So when she goes to pull that elbow back, there's just no way. And now when I go to put the mechanics in, we can get incredibly strong finishes with a high-risk guillotine from that position. All right, so now we're going to look at going into finishing a power guillotine from here. All right, very, very similar. This time, we go in, and you can use any of these guillotines from closed guard because you have such good connection of your hips to your partner's hips. And we're going to talk about which guillotines I prefer when I don't have the perfect connections and so on and so forth. But I'm just going through the finishing mechanics of all the guillotines, and we're going to look at which are the preferred ones from given positions. Okay, so this time we fall, and we move into a position where I shoot my hand through and I'm going to look to go for a high elbow. This time, instead of going for a high elbow, instead of raising my elbow, I lower my elbow and I switch to a pushing grip like so. I just physically make a fist, I grab with 5 fingers over the meat of my hand here. And now right from here, I'm going to look to start pushing my hand into my partner's neck and up towards the ceiling. So almost in a diagonal in this direction. So the directionality of force is I'm almost pushing my hand towards my partner's far shoulder. Right below my partner's far shoulder, right in this direction here. As I do that, everything remains the same. Chin to chest, I bring the chest up to the chin by pulling my knees in, and then we get strong finishes. So we pull everything into this position, and notice I want a strong connection of my wrist to the other side of my partner's neck. I push everything up. Now, right from here, I lock up, and we can get strong finishes with a power guillotine. Okay. So instead of transitioning, we pull everything across. Instead of transitioning over for a high elbow, maybe my partner pulls my elbow down. Instead of going to a low elbow, we switch to a power guillotine from here. So instead of switching to a low elbow, we still have the wrist high. As my partner pulls my elbow down, she reaches over, she pulls the elbow down, and we switch right to a power guillotine, and we get strong finishes with the power guillotine right from there. All right, so now we're going to look at figure 4. Again, very, very similar. Right from here, you got to get that wrist all the way through. So we want to punch that wrist all the way through initially. Now, right from here, I want to get a strong connection of my fingertips to my biceps. So as I pull that wrist through, we're just going to turn our hand. So we pull our hand through like we're going for a high elbow, and then we just rotate our hand into this position. So our hands are like this, overlapping one another. And then right from there, we just shoot. It's like when you're punching in a rear naked, that fingertips and the hand to the biceps. So right from here, we pull everything up high. And then right from here, we just turn the hand and we shoot into a full figure of 4. Now we lock up. Now again, the whole thing is, I just take my partner's chin, I crunch it to the chest, I take my knees, I pull them to my chest, and then get strong finishes with a full figure 4 guillotine. All right, so it's almost the same as going into the high elbow or the power guillotine, except for we pull the hand through and we turn our hands like this. And we just shoot right to the bicep, we bring the elbows together, and then we crunch our partner's chin to the chest. All right, so now for the arm-in guillotine, we want to look to go in and finish, okay? When I have the arm-in guillotine, because I have control of my partner's head and arm, it's harder to actually get the finish because obviously there's more mass in there and you don't have as good of a connection to your partner's neck because the arm is involved a little bit in the strangle. And the shoulder is not involved in the strangle, but you have your partner's arm trapped. So you have more control, but the setting of the hands, a lot of times, to actually get a mechanically strong finish can be harder, okay, if you don't have the proper mechanics. So right from here, we fall into this position. We want to switch to an arm in for whatever reason. Or maybe what happens is I go to bump my partner over, I go to switch to guillotine, and she goes in and she tries to body lock me. So now it's getting hard for me to get through this space to lock my hand. So we just elect to go in, and we go into an arm in guillotine. Right from this position, usually with arm in guillotines, what I have to do is I have to lock the initial guillotine, and then I have to set it a second time. So I have to adjust the set. So right from here, we lift a second time. So I shrug the shoulders, my elbows come high. We're in the middle of a thunderstorm here. I'm gonna wait for it to pass. My shoulders shrug, my elbows come high, and that's what pulls my hands up high, okay? Because my partner's gonna be trying to bring the elbow down, and that's gonna make it hard for me to pull everything up. So I initially lock it. A lot of times, if it's not set properly, I have to reset it by bringing everything up high, and now going in and relocking. Now notice from here, again, my elbow's wedged inside my own leg, so when she gets to pull her elbow down and bring the hands down, it's much more difficult from this position. Now, right from here, again, I want to start crunching my partner's chin into the chest, okay? A lot of times, if for whatever reason, you feel like you cannot set the hands properly, you feel like you just can't get them high enough, that's when the reverse grip comes into place. Because the reverse grip will create movement. So what happens is if my hands are down here, we can switch to this reverse grip, and as I'm switching to the reverse grip, it'll create a lack of friction because of the movement, and I can use that reverse grip to get my hands a little bit higher. So the reverse grip is used, the only time I ever use this reverse grip is on the arm in guillotine, when I'm looking to get my hands just a tad higher, and I feel like I can't do it just by resetting and adjusting the hands. So if I feel like I have a 5-finger grip here and I feel like it's just not high enough, I'll switch to a reverse grip, and that switch to the reverse grip will just intrinsically bring my hands a little bit higher because of the fact that I'm using false grips and I'm switching to a wrist-to-wrist grip. So that will always bring my hands a little bit higher, but both grips are good. So right from here, we set it. If it's high, great. If not, my 2 elbows come up and together. My shoulders shrug, and this pulls the grip nice and high in place. So that now, when I lock everything in place, I take the chin down and get incredibly strong finishes. They can also switch if we feel like we're having a hard time setting it. Bring everything up high. We switch to that reverse grip, and that reverse grip pulls everything up nice and tall, or nice and high, and we can go in and we can get finishes there with either a 5-finger or a reverse grip. The elbows coming up high, pulling everything up, chin coming down, and then finishing the same mechanics we were always looking at. Okay, so those are the finishes for any of these guillotines. And now we're going to look at when I prefer to use, which guillotines I prefer to use, and which situations, and go over a general idea for that. Okay, so now on any one of these guillotines, because we have closed guard locked, when our partner tries to roll defensively into a mounted position, we can always follow extremely easily. Okay, so whether it's a low elbow, high wrist, doesn't matter. If my partner tries to go into a defensive roll over into mount, because you have your legs locked in a closed guard, she will always carry you over into a mounted position like so. Okay. And now you can just finish right from this position. When I have low elbow guillotines and I follow into a mounted position, the whole thing now, because it's hard to pull my knees into my chest from here because of the fact that my legs are no longer underneath my partner, and she's wedged against the floor, my whole thing now is going to be looking to connect my hips to my partner's and crossing my ankles underneath my partner's buttocks, like so. Now, right from here, what I want to do is I want to take my head to my partner's center line the best that I can. The reason for this is because of the fact that the closer my head gets to my center line, the easier it will be to take my elbow off the floor and pull it to my hip. So right from here, when I land, I take my head and I move it towards the center line. Now I take my chin down low, my elbows come up high, my hands come up high, and then my hips drive in, and I take my elbow up to my hip, and we get strong finishes. Similar to how in closed guard, I don't want to be square on to my partner and have a guillotine here. I don't want to be completely square to my partner when I'm in mounted position. Okay, I want to be slightly angled. So from here, I want to be on my right hip, right, in order to finish. If we are playing with guillotines, I want to be on my right hip here. I want to take my right elbow down to my right hip. If we end up in a mounted position, I want to take my right elbow to my right hip. So right from here, if my head is off to the side here, it's hard to take my elbow to my hip. When my head comes to center, I can crunch my partner's head or chin down to her chest much easier. So I sprawl, and then everything just comes down, and I take my partner's chin into the chest by taking my head almost to my partner's center line, not quite to my partner's center line, but closer than where I would land. And now from here, I just take my hips in, and I take my elbow down to my hip. Okay? So when my partner goes to drag me over, we'll do one pretty realistically here. I have a guillotine, and I fall to my right hip, right from here. Right from here. My partner goes to roll over defensively. My head comes to center, and now as my head comes close to the center, my hips come in, and now we get strong finishes by taking that elbow down to the hips. Okay, the same is true with all the rest of the guillotines. Whether you go low elbow, whether you go high elbow, whether you go high wrist, whether you go arm in, whether you go power guillotine, whether you go figure four, this all remains the same from here. Okay? What I want from this position is the ability
to control my partner through hip-to-hip contact. Okay, I don't want to be here because now there's no hip-to-hip contact, and my partner can start putting hands on hips, giving me trouble from here. Whereas if I'm here, there's hip-to-hip contact. When she goes to kip out of here, it's going to be hard because I have control over the head. When she goes to move me around, there's hip-to-hip contact. I have my hips connected to my partners, and we can go in, get a strong connection, and finish our partner. So mechanics a little bit change from these positions. When we're in closed guard, because I'm covering my partner's lower back, I'm pulling the knees in towards me. That pulls my partner in like so. When I'm in mount, I connect my ankles underneath my partner's hips, and I get that hip-to-hip connection through driving my hips in rather than pulling my knees into my chest. Okay, it's a little bit different from here. But the finishing on mechanics and the rest of the guillotines of the upper body all remain the same. I'm crunching my partner's chin to my chest. I'm getting my head closer to my partner's center line, and that crunches my partner's chin to my chest right from the beginning. Whether it be with any kind of arm in, arm out guillotine, high elbow, low elbow. If my partner rolls over, so if we're here, let's say, we get into a high wrist position, and my partner goes to roll over. The same thing. Hips come down, head moves in, and we get strong finishes. Okay? So if my partner rolls into a mounted position from there, we just follow on through. We connect our hips to our partners, we crunch a chin to the chest, and we get strong finishes. All right, so one of the great options that we have from a closed guard scenario from any of these guillotines is a lot of times when we set the guillotine up, my partner will, number one, if I have an arm in variation, then she can only use one of her hands. But a lot of times, even when I don't have an arm in variation, my partner has a hard time using the primary hand to come in and actually do anything effective with the grip fighting, okay? Because even if I have the arm out, when she goes to bring that hand in, there's just not enough space to function here, to work reliably from this closed guard scenario. So whether I have arm in or arm out doesn't really make a difference. It's going to be hard for my partner to use what would be her primary hand to come in and start hand fighting. But a lot of times, if I don't set the move properly and my partner comes in and uses the secondary hand, she can pull my wrist down just enough where she reaches in. Even if my legs are locked, she reaches in, and now from here, it won't allow me to actually get a strong finish. Maybe it's close, but no dice, okay? Whenever I see this, we're just going to look to start transitioning into triangle scenarios, where I'm just going to take my leg up and over, and we're going to look to start throwing our leg up and over our partner's shoulder. As my partner pulls the hand down, I allow my partner to do so. And then right from here, as she pulls the hand down, we're just going to snake the hand out, and we're just going to catch over our partner's shoulder with that hamstring. And now right from here we go in, and we lock a trap triangle. Now, wherever we go from here, whether it be a Mote Senkaku front triangle or Hantai Senkaku wrong way triangle, wherever you're going to go from this transition is up to you, but just the setup is the main thing. Okay, where we go in from here, we make that adjustment, we lock up, we go into triangle. And then of course, if my partner goes to posture out of the triangle, we lose the triangle, and we just go right back in and we enter into our partner's legs as always. Okay, but whenever I see that the guillotine is almost there, but it's just not working for whatever reason, I feel like my partner uses the secondary hand to pull the hand down, and I see her elbow come inside of my knee. Okay, that's what I need. If her elbow is outside the knee, now I can't lock triangle, obviously. If she brings the elbow inside the knee and starts pulling the hand down, which she'll need to do to hand fight, if she tries to pull the hand down with the elbow flared, she won't have any power from here. She has to bring the elbow close to the body, so now she can really pull the hand down. And as she does, I just extend everything. As she goes to pull down, I extend my arms down the body, and that allows my leg to come up much easier. And now we can go in, lock our trap triangle, and then go into all of our attacks off of that. The transition from failed guillotine where the hands aren't high enough, I can't get the win, into triangle, and then moving from there. All right, so now when I fail the guillotine, and I'm in closed guard, I don't have to just let the guillotine go. Okay, we can start pommeling legs, and if we can't have triangles not there, guillotine's not there, I don't just have to let go and start in closed guard again. We can start pommeling legs inside. Now, the one great thing that you have going for you when you fail a guillotine is that you can couple the failed guillotine with sumigachi attempts.
Because if you look at the overwhelming majority of Sumigeshis, the one thing that I need to actually take my partner over is touching her forehead to the ground. If I can touch my partner's forehead to the ground with Sumigeshis, you will have a much higher percentage here of taking your partner over and getting top position. Okay? So with most of Sumigeshis that I do, with the exception of things like shoulder crunches, for example, the goal from here is to get my partner's forehead to touch the floor. If I can do that, when she goes to recover from here, it's going to be incredibly, incredibly difficult. Okay? When you have a guillotine, you always have the ability to touch your partner's head to the floor, which will make Sumigeshi so much easier than hitting other Sumigeshi variations, because you're guaranteed to be able to touch your partner's forehead to the floor. And just understanding this and knowing this makes it very easy to take advantage of the interface between the submission with the guillotine and the positional play with the Sumigeshi. Okay? So, here, actually, on this side, I had any kind of failed guillotine. I feel like it's just not working. Okay? When I go to pommel my legs in, the bottom leg is never going to be able to pommel inside. But the top leg will be able to pommel inside from here. When I go to pommel my legs to the inside position, there's a couple of ways I can do it. I can do it conservatively, or I can kind of bait my partner into taking a little bit of space so I can give my partner, taking a little bit of space, and I give a little to get a little. When I go to pommel my leg in, if I see that from here, I can just pommel my leg to the inside position, leave pommel my leg inside. Many times my partner's fighting, I have the guillotine in place, she's looking to walk back and away from me, she's doing all things that people do, and I can pommel my legs in, and we can go butterfly guard right from here. If I see that, then I can just hit various forms of movements to get my second leg in, whether it be a full forward shift and pummeling my second leg in, whether it be allowing my partner to step over my second leg, which is usually the easiest, and pummeling my second leg in. There's various different ways we can get that second leg in when we initially lock up the guillotine and put our first leg in. All right. Now, we can also play a game where if my partner's tight toward me, I feel like I can't pommel my legs to the inside. From here, I can just let my partner step over my leg, and instead she's moving into half guard. And now as her legs circle over a way to start moving into half guard, now we can pommel legs to the inside position. All right, so one thing I can do is I can keep my legs high, and I can pommel legs to the inside if I can. Especially if my partner tries to go into a 4-point, for example, starts staffing me, this makes butterfly hooks very easy from here. If she starts bringing these off the floor to bring her head forward, that makes butterfly hooks and Sumigeshi much easier. I can also, if I feel like she's just being tight, she's being smart, she's doing all the right things, I just allow my partner to think she's moving into half guard. And now, when she goes to start moving into half guard from here, that's when my hook comes in, and now we can start going in and working our Sumigeshi games. All right, so now the actual mechanics of the Sumigeshi, once I have this guillotine. Regardless of what guillotine I have, it doesn't matter, because the function here is to get my partner's chin or my partner's forehead to the floor. So whether it be arm in, arm out, powered guillotine, high rest, doesn't make a difference. The only thing I'm looking for when I get my right leg pommeled in is just to touch my partner's forehead down to the ground. Once I have my partner's forehead on the ground, it's about forcing my partner into a front roll, where I don't just wedge my partner's head against the ground, I look to crunch my partner's chin into the chest. If she bases the right hand out and brings the head high up towards my armpit, it can be hard to take your partner over from here. So the goal here is to crunch my partner's chin to the chest. And at the same time, I start lifting with the right leg. If you have to, you can enact a bridge with your left leg to start bringing your hips up and off the floor. But usually, because the head is so far crunched in, almost anything will take your partner over. So just a simple lifting action with the right leg will take your partner up and over from this position. Okay? If I have to, we can start bridging, take our partner up and over, and now you have a bunch of different choices from this position. All right? One of my favorite from here is we just turn belly down, so our head, our forehead posts on the floor,
and I just simply we step up and over our partner's body, and now we can go into a guillotine from mounted position. Okay? So we touch the forehead to the ground. As she goes to base, we take the chin to the chest. And now the Sumigaeshi just becomes so easy from here, where now we can switch off to things like anacondas, we can stay with the guillotine, we can do all kinds of things. One of the easiest things I can do from here is I just simply take my forehead and I glue it to the floor. Now I scissor my legs and come up off my knees. So I walk, gets up and over. Now we can go in and finish our partner from there. Another great option we have is immediately off the Sumigaeshi. My partner many times will try to re-roll to not concede bottom position. So I go Sumigaeshi. She tries to re-roll from here. We can roll up and over the shoulder with her. Now we can go into front headlock and start going into our other various guillotines from this position, or go behinds, whatever you want. My personal favorite is the second I roll through, I switch right to a high-risk guillotine. So we go Sumigaeshi. She goes to roll. As she goes to roll, notice from here, I'm on my left shoulder. As she goes to roll, I just take my legs up. I back roll over my right shoulder. And right from here, we just slip our hand on through. We go high wrist. Now we can start going in and finishing all of our high wrist guillotines, which we'll look at finishing from the front headlock when we get there. But because you have the ability to touch your partner's forehead to the ground, the Sumigaeshi becomes so much easier. And then off of the Sumigaeshi, you can follow up with coming to top position, finishing from mount, following your partner through, exposing their back. You can do all kinds of things once you actually get them over and move to a situation where they're not on top of you anymore.